Labour Party is given the right to operate in its parliamentary constituency and not outside its parliamentary constituency. And that was the difference between when we were a district party, we were one operation across the 3 parliamentary constituencies. As Pavilion, we can only operate inside Pavilion. And it's the same with any branch. You know, Preston Park operates in Preston Park, Hanover and Elm Grove operates in Hanover and Elm Grove. If you want to conduct campaigning events outside your ward area, you have to get the permission of whoever's area you're going into before you can do anything. That's the basic rule in the Labour Party about organisation. Now, about these new branches, what John was saying is also correct, in that what's always been the rule is that, and Hove still operate it, because in Pavilion, our branches are well enough established and operating effectively enough so that we've got a branch in every single ward, and that's what we're all used to, well established, well functioning, well run branches. In Hove, for example, because they were smaller in the past, they've got 20 branches. So Wish and Westbourne, taking an example, are 2 separate electoral wards. That operates as one branch. And that happens throughout Hove. You've got pairs of wards operating as one branch. That same principle can apply. If you've got a branch, so if Pavilion has a branch, one of these equalities branch, which is too small to operate effectively on its own, it can apply for permission to operate across a boundary with another branch. So that is a commonly operated procedure in the Labour Party, and that would clearly be what you're asking for, Mohammed and Leonie, and what I've just been explaining to John Bosco. And I think there's every expectation that that will happen, particularly to start off with. But, you know, hopefully we would get branches up and running and supported. And you may well find, because branches, of course, have different rights. So the whole point about turning forums into branches is there should be better representation. Branches will have rights to send delegates to bodies. The reason we can't set them up straight away, the reason we've got to wait to hear more from the NEC is we don't know what delegate representation rights they'll be given. Otherwise, if it was just, you're going to get a branch, we could just do it within our own rules straight away. But that's actually, it's more difficult in these structures, and we try to explain that in the paper. So we know they're coming. We're going to ask the forums, our forums, to work towards that. So the Disabled Ladies Forum can work towards being a disability branch. You know, our Women's Forum can work towards being a women's branch, hopefully during 2019. And going to Sarah's point, when this constituency was first reconvened last year, we said to Hove and Kent Town, look, we've been told we've got to operate on a constituency basis. We don't see any point having separate forums. Let's all organise a forum and let's operate it on a quarterly basis. And you know, our forums meet in month 1, your forums, Hove, can meet in month 2, and Kent Town's forums can meet in month 3. And let's open those meetings to members from the other constituencies. So effectively, you'd have one rolling meeting. Now, we did that, but Hove and Kent Town never really got their forums off the ground. So it's never really worked. You know, but that was the intention. So either, you know, this could go one of 2 ways. Either we all have separate branches and we ask the other constituencies to open those branch meetings, or we apply, and it would be technically applying to the NEC, but in effect you're applying to regional office because they have the power of the NEC for these respects, to give permission to operate a citywide Brighton Hove branch. So that's the answer to that question. Hopefully that's explained it enough. John's question about affiliate seats, yes, there are rules. The rules that we're referring to were, you know, there were, when I referred earlier in my delegates report, rule changes were passed by conference. You know, there were constitutional amendments. When I refer to constitutional amendments being passed by conference, the wording is publicly available. It's in the Conference Arrangements Committee reports, which are publicly available via My Labour. Any member can download them. They're on the national website. And in fact, the Democracy Review report is also on the national website, and it's linked into, on the Pavilion website, it's got a link to it. So that's all available, and that's what we're referring to. Standard rules are in the Labour Party rulebook. They've been rewritten, and that's now what we've got to adopt into our constitution. In effect, our constitution's already been rewritten by Labour conference. And this is what we're now reacting to. We've got to bring those rules into our constitution so that it makes sense. and so that we put our constitution knowing that our constitution is going to be changed, and also that this is just stage one of a process that's going to change further, put our constitution in the best shape. Now the rule that John is particularly concerned about, our constitution didn't follow the model Labour Party rule in the first place. We were given a different rule when the CRP was reconvened by Brighton Hove steering group in February last year. The Labour Party conference this year has just written a new rule for that part of the constitution. This is a national rule, it has been brought in, and it applies to every constituency in the country. Now, myself, Ros and Adam have said, this is not a decision for three of us to take. We don't even think it's a decision for the EC to take. This should be a decision taken in the most democratic fashion by GC delegates. And we highlighted it in the report so that GC delegates can go back, take this to your branches, consult with your branches, because Labour conference very clearly sent out a message. They've adopted this rule by, they're all adopted by 99% plus. Again, the figures are in my conference report. This rule has been adopted without, it doesn't say we're adopting this rule for every constituency in the country except Brighton Pavilion. It has been adopted for every constituency in the country. If we adopt that rule in the wording that has been adopted by Labour conference as it's intended we should, our executive will lose the reserved seat for the co-op and the reserved seat for the trade union representative. It doesn't mean that those people can't stand for election to our executive as one of the officers. They can still do that. But that is a national rule, and it just means that our executive will be composed in the same way as every other executive will be across the country. But that is for the GC to decide, and that will be an amendment coming to the AGM next month, and GC delegates can vote on it there. So thank you, John, for highlighting that. The discussion is actually in point 8. And it's all set out in point 8 in this report. Sarah, on job shares, yeah, the thing about job shares is we've tried to set out a basis that we think we can adopt it now, the principle of job shares, without having to wait for whatever more the NEC is going to write. We don't see how they can put any restrictions on job shares and stay within the Equality Act. Because of disability issues. Because how can you restrict job shares and stay within the Equality Act? Because you could be saying that you could be stopping a disabled person doing it. We do see that the rule that came through does very clearly say that there will be certain officers will be eligible for job shares, which implies some sort of restriction. The only thing we could think of was, as we've listed in this report, was that that might mean that they're talking about women's officers could only be a job share between 2 women. We don't see how else what they can mean, but there has been a very big national discussion between constituency secretaries on this. I haven't participated in it, but I've been reading it assiduously, and it was actually did come up. There was a workshop for CRP roll holders at regional conference, and it came up there as well. And the message actually that one of the regional organisers also said the same thing. It's widely anticipated that, in particular, the role of secretary won't be allowed to be job shared, and it's exactly because of the issue you raised. It's because of these the Labour Party is really concerned about data protection. It's really highly sensitive about it, and it still hasn't come to terms with the GDPR, and it's very worried about it. So that's why we've gone as far as we can in this report, and we don't think we can go any further pending whatever is going to come out of the NEC. We've really taken it as far as we can. And just the point that Ty wanted to bring up, and this refers to the older people's officer, and this is actually important, sorry, I should have emphasised this for branches. When you're going back to your November meetings for branches, remember that the deadline for business to come into the constituency secretary for the AGM is 11 AM on the 24th of November. If you want to make nominations for constituency officers, there are now new officers to nominate for, not just the ones we nominated for last year. And the new officers that will exist, as per these changes from conference, are listed in point 7. At the bottom of the page, it's got point 7 in it in this report. But in addition to that, and it's something that I apologise, I should have reminded branches as constituency secretary. Earlier this year, this GC passed a resolution which supported having a constituency older members officer. And that, because that was part of GC policy, that of course will be coming, the EC will be bringing that, following that up and bringing it as a resolution, as a constitutional amendment to the AGM, like we did last year when, you know, when there was the BAME officer. You know, that's a change we can only make at the AGM, so we'll be bringing that back and reminding delegates that that is constituency policy. So when you're moving nominations, when you're considering nominations in your branches, you should also be considering, and it's not listed here because it doesn't come out of the national rule changes, but it is policy of this GC that we should have an older people's officer. So thanks to Ty, who's done such great work as chair of the Older People's Forum, for reminding us that we should also be nominated for that position.
Thank you very much for that response.